And here we go. We're live. Hi, everyone. I'm Dane Dormio. I'm here with my good buddy, Andrew Brown. Welcome to the Chai Tea Tai Chi web show, I should say. I'm Dane Dormio. I'm here with my good buddy, Andrew Brown. And we have the pleasure and the privilege of being joined tonight by two champions of Qigong, Chris and Parisa Shelton, who work together as a husband and wife team. Chris is a certified Qigong practitioner and teacher with 19 years of clinical experience, and together they have helped thousands of people across the United States reclaim their health and overcome chronic pain, and in particular, including Special Olympics teams, professional martial artists, weightlifters, and celebrities. Chris's work has appeared in newspapers, magazines, radio, and television, and he's also the author of Qigong for Self-Refinement, which is a beautiful name. I love it. It has a great ring to it. And they also put out great content on YouTube and in their membership site. And they're the co-founders of the Morning Crane Healing Arts Center in beautiful San Jose, California. So Chris and Parisa, thank you both very much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, yeah.
We're glad to be here.
Yeah, we don't have to pretend because the applause is happening asynchronously across time and space, but
I can hear it. Everyone, thank you.
Yeah. So and I also want to say thanks as well for being such awesome guests for the World Tai Chi Day Summit. It was quite an adventure for us, and I was really glad to have the opportunity to help put your work on display there. So
thank you. A lot of fun.
What I'm curious about to begin with is, what's your origin story in terms of what brought you into Qigong and related, the whole umbrella of related practices. Some people come through medicine, some people come through martial arts. There's all kinds of different ways people get brought to these kinds of things. So how did it start with you?
So what happened was that I grew up and had a very dysfunctional childhood. Had my first heart attack at age 17 or 18, and then from a meth overdose. Couldn't learn from the first one, so I had a second heart attack just for shits and giggles, and so what happened was that I was always very driven, self-motivated, but I realized I was going to end up dead in prison or both. That was the path I was heading on. And so I put myself into Taekwondo. Also, I was getting into fights where I started off fighting one person. Next thing you know, I'd have 4 or 5 people on me. So that was the other reason why for Taekwondo too. But anyways, so I started competing right away. Like, just barely got my yellow belt. Like, put me in, coach. And then one night before a match, it was by accident, just a freak accident, doing jump spinning back kick, and was kicked in the back and hit the ground, was almost paralyzed from the waist down, which led me to my first, led me to this amazing doctor, and she had a therapist working for her. He was a martial artist too, and he started talking to me about Qi. And I'm 18 or 19 years old now, and I was like, yeah, right. There's the closest thing I'm gonna get to Qi is like Cheez-Its and Cheez Whiz, because there's no such thing as Qi, right? But I had other serious health problems too, man. I had severe digestive problems. If I ate a salad, I was in a fetal position like an hour or two later. If I ate any kind of fat or anything like that, I was vomiting, just in a lot of pain. I also had severe sinus issues. And, you know, I had all the tests done, upper GI, lower GI. I lived on all kinds of antibiotics and medication. So I had nothing to lose. You know, at the time, you know, people said, you know, the doctors were saying, well, Chris, if you're not careful, you know, you may never walk again. And if you're not careful, you know, things you take for granted, like sex, that may never happen again, you know. And so I started doing these Qigong classes. And back then, so this is 30 years ago, right? And nobody was really talking about Qigong 30 years ago. I mean, Tai Chi, we're starting to hear, you know, in the Bay Area and stuff like that. And so there's only a few people, a couple women in the class, you know, and I started taking these classes, and, you know, they were having all kinds of great experiences. I thought I was a Qi dud because I didn't feel anything. Like, you know, like, what's this idea of Qi now? You know, but over time, after about 6 months or so, what it started to happen was that I realized, like, oh man, when did I stop living on the Tums and kale pectate? You know, when did I stop living on the Actifed, the Sudafed, the antibiotics? You know, I couldn't tell you an exact pinpoint date, but I had all of a sudden this realization that something changed, right? And I thought, man, if a gentle movement and specific guided meditation could do this to me, there must be something to Chinese medicine. So that's when I started pursuing Chinese medicine and such. And then, yeah, and, you know, shoot, doctors went from saying, you know, Chris might not be able to walk again to Chris will be able to walk. Then it was, well, Chris won't be able to train again, to where then it was, well, okay, well, he'll be able to train, but he'll never fight again. And I did my last amateur kickboxing matches at age 40, also my last Kung Fu matches. So I used to compete with Tai Chi in tournaments. And I was ranked 10th in the US at one point. And yeah, so just proved them wrong, man. So that was my start. That's how I got hooked.
Wow. That's a great testimonial for Qigong. Holy crap. I'm almost paralyzed and sickly to healthy and strong. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool. Yeah. Yeah, you know, it's one of those things that is so subtle, and that's what I tell students, right? You know, it's so subtle. You know, a lot of us like to work out and stuff, you know, and if you're, you know, weightlifting or whatever, or doing a TRX class or something, you know, you're going to start to see like changes, you know, pretty quickly if you do it, you know, daily. Qigong, you know, at first we just feel good, and then what I tell people is that the feeling good part is the byproduct. Really, it's really helping you to develop, well, spiritually, regardless of what your religious belief structure is, but also too helping to really refine, you know, our essence, and understanding how emotions are the leading cause of death and disease besides poor diet.
I really love what you just said, Chris, about, and I'd like to hear more about Qigong helping you develop spiritually, regardless of whatever your particular religious belief system may be. And I think that's I think that's really deep, and I'm actually thinking of someone that I knew from childhood, actually, who came from a very Christian family, and at a certain point as an adult, when I invited him to support World Tai Chi Day or something like that, he said, "Oh, I don't know about this, because if it's not Jesus, you know, I don't want to have anything to do with it." And I thought that was so weird. But I recognize that there is, you know, like the idea that you know, like there's various forms of fundamentalism that exist in religion, in martial arts, in politics, where, you know, if it's it's, you know, basically in this case, it's, you know, it's not, you know, it doesn't have this particular stamp of of true faith or whatever. So therefore, it has to be rejected. But that idea that this helps you develop spiritually, I think that I don't emphasize the spiritual aspect of Qigong and what I teach. It's about health, wellness, longevity, and performance enhancement are the main things that I think a lot of us focus on. Spiritual elements are there. So I'd like to hear more about what exactly you mean by helping a person develop spiritually, and how is Qigong a spiritual practice?
Well, I'm with you, brother. I don't promote because of respect for all people. I don't really talk about the spiritual aspect of things, but I have people that are devout Christians or Catholics, but see the value of how it gets them closer to the universal source, the Tao, God. Because vibrationally, like what's going on in this country right now, there's a lot of unconscious behavior happening. Why? Because the vibration is so coarse and dense. And one of the things that Qigong allows us to do, that's why my book is called Self-Refinement. It's kind of a big word for some people. We're thinking about changing the title because, they're like, self-refine what? What does that mean? And so the example I like to give is like a guitar string. You put a brand new guitar string on that guitar, you pluck that guitar string, that vibration is very coarse. You can see the vibration, right? But as you tune it, the vibration gets harder to see because it becomes more refined. But if you were to look at it very closely, you see that it's actually still vibrating. That's what happens with our Qi, especially when we start letting go of the ego, worldly attachments, and really dealing with our mental, emotional blockages, which show up as disease. So to me, when someone says to communicate with God, what that means to me is that your refinement has gotten to the place to where it's not a like, hey, Joe, what's going on, man? It's more like, no, there's a knowing that comes about because now your mind is quiet enough to actually listen. And if you practice Qigong enough, you can't help but to have that help happen for you. Eckhart Tolle, I love that man. He says it best. He said it best. I think it was The Power of Now. He said, once you start to increase the consciousness of a person, you can't stop it. You can slow it down, but you can't stop it. So the same thing happens with Qigong. As this continual refinement happens, we start to melt away and letting go of the physical body, the attachment to that. And as your Qi refines, yes, first and foremost, because our bodies are vehicle for which to us to move around and to live out our life purpose, for which the Tao or God emanates through that. But so we obviously the first and foremost, the Qigong is for that physical and that mental, emotional well-being, and then from there, as a byproduct, then what happens is that this knowing becomes stronger, this refinement becomes much more refined, because something like God and the gentleman like you're talking about Jesus. Unfortunately, a lot of people make Jesus into, or God, and make it into a person, like a he, or a certain race or something like that. And something that unnameable, that great, cannot be described. As soon as you start to try to describe it and put a name on it, it loses its greatness, because it emanates through everything, seen and unseen, which is a profound thought, right? But it's really the truth, right? And so for me, when we talk about the spiritual aspects, and I'm not talking like religious Taoism, none of that kind of stuff. I have nothing against it, but what I'm talking about is that you cultivate yourself, refine yourself, and in true Taoist philosophy, also, it's more about looking inward and calming and really recognizing that ego and how it shows up in your life. And I used to think that the ego was just some cocky guy walking down the street. That's true. That's one expression of the ego, right? But a shy person actually has a bigger ego than the person has his chest puff walking down the street. So the Qigong, what I believe, at least through my own practices, because I used to be a really angry person. If you grew up if you saw my childhood, like when I played football, if I missed a tackle, I get punched in the face. So I was really angry, and that's hence the reason why, in hindsight, looking back, the reason why I had so many digestive problems. I didn't know it back then, but after studying Chinese medicine and stuff, like, oh shoot, now it makes perfectly good sense. But But I was angry. People would ask me, they say, Chris, you're angry. I'd be like, screw you, you're angry. Like, what are you talking about? You know? So, not to say that I can't get agitated. I'm human still, like everybody else. But I definitely come from a different place, and I contribute that to this understanding of the inner workings of the universe and how everything plays together. You know, like with this COVID thing, we had somebody. He was a subtenant of ours doing massage. He left. We were able to stay open because we work also with the county as well. And we told him, hey, brother, don't leave, man, don't leave. So anyways, he took off and didn't pay his rent. And so, you know, like anybody else, right, then you use that deposit. So anyways, fast forward, I think because of the fear that was being installed into everybody, right? He sent us a nasty text message, you know, threatening to, if he saw me on the street, he was going to kick my ass. And is there kids on here? I won't.
Swear.
Sorry.
Don't worry about it.
But he's going to, threatening this kind of stuff or whatever. And at first, you know, obviously, right, it creates an internal trigger. But I sat on it, and you know what I did is I sat on it for a couple of days, and I realized, and I sent him a text message back, and I told him, I said, you know, I normally don't respond to aggressive or insulting people, but I realized that you're actually afraid. You're afraid. You are in fear mode right now, and so therefore, you know, we're going to Venmo you $500, and hopefully that's going to give you some peace of mind, and for a little bit to help you get you through this, right? The old me would not have conducted myself that way.
Yep, that's one of the beautiful things about discovering the self, is that there is no self.
There's no self.
That the world is together.
Yeah, well, right. Yeah.
So, Parisa, I wanted to hear your story of discovering Qigong. Like, how did you get into treating breathing as a skill?
Right? That's a good question. You know what? And it goes back. Growing up in Silicon Valley, and my parents have two very different backgrounds. My dad is from Iran, and my mom is East Coast Jewish. And so and Silicon Valley is definitely a melting pot of many different things and many different options, we could say. And just not really having much direction in my life. I was on this track. I went to UC Santa Cruz and graduated with a degree in environmental studies, but honestly, at that time, I was so immature, I didn't really care about the environment. I just was doing it to get through, right? And then
easy coursework.
Yeah, and then after I graduated, I met my first mentor teacher, and actually Chris and I bonded over a similar experience, because what had happened is, you know, the teacher, both of our teachers, became threatened by the growth that we were experiencing and our readiness to launch into the stratosphere, trying to hold us back. And in that process, I was studying massage therapy at a local junior college, training Pilates. I had started to take a few Qigong classes, and then cultivating my energy, started to focus on the law of attraction and what my thoughts and what I really desired for my life. And then suddenly at the Pilates studio I was training at, I got fired, just with no warning, just cut. And in that process of what seemed like a disaster at that time is actually how I met my true love. And since then, that was like 10 years ago, we had just been continuing down this path of working in the healing modalities and really being a catalyst of trying to help people transform their lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Wow, that's wonderful.
I actually want to give you my vote, Chris, that I even though self-refinement is kind of a big word, I think it's I think you shouldn't change it.
Oh, you know why people are saying we should change it? Because no one's keyword searching self-refinement. It's not a
maybe one day.
It's not
Yeah,
a searchable
self-development.
word.
As we all gather together and enlighten everybody,
Self-help.
right? Or help to enlighten.
That brings up a great point that, you know, like, or, you know, how strategic are you going to be, and, you know, is it are you going to actually like you know, engineer your sort of brand image based on what people are already searching for and get in that whole feedback loop, or, you know, where, you know, versus being just, you know, following your muse and going where it leads, and, you know, get people searching for that term if it's that important. But yeah, I can totally see, you know, that I can see why people would say that for sure.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. Yeah. I mean, anyway, things to consider.
Yeah, picking your cues from basically is what you got to decide, you know. I mean, the term refinement, at least to me, that means that it's refinement, cultivation. It's this sense of tuning your instrument, and, you know, your instrument being you yourself, and that in you know, the sense of in which we can develop ourselves physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and in fact they all not just can go together, but have to go together in order for the whole person to grow. And this you know, the practice of Qigong in general is a very accessible way to go about doing that. I mean, it's kind of the tool for that specifically. But going from the more general to the more specific, I'm curious about what is your approach to teaching, and what do you emphasize?
So our approach is that Qigong is the foundation of acupuncture and Chinese medicine. You know, thousands of years ago, people were so enlightened, minus the ego and their connection with the Tao, and understanding the interconnection of all things, that it was the foundation. So the way that we approach the Qigong is understanding of how it applies to Chinese medicine, and understanding that, you know, all these diseases that come up, you know, on our YouTube channel each week we launch some video related to some kind of we release a video related to some disease. And, you know, a lot of times, you know, like I'll give you an example. You know, anytime we see somebody with a frozen shoulder or a neck issue, for example, you know, unless you're doing jiu-jitsu and someone popped your shoulder out, or you're a pitcher, popped your shoulder out, if you got into a car accident and immediately from the car accident, not 2 weeks later, you had a shoulder injury, if it happens 2 weeks later, it's emotional. But every single shoulder issue that I've seen always comes back to emotions that affect the heart, because the way that we treat it in clinic, we actually work on the triple burner channel and the large intestine channel on the neck. But anyways, every single one, it doesn't matter if you're a man, woman, whatever. What happens is that, you know, we're emotionally expressive people. One of the common words right now in Western medicine is inflammation, right? Well, what's causing inflammation? You have poor diet, genetically modified foods, artificial flavorings, all that kind of stuff. Yes, that will create inflammation in the body. But also, when we suppress and don't express appropriately, it shows up as disease. One of my clients, and any client that I say is because they've given me the okay to say their name, Michael Kroger, the guitarist from Nickelback, had cervical issues in his cervical spine. He did a testimonial for me. It's on my YouTube page. Our people in Chicago said, well, before you have that neck surgery, you should fly out to Cali and see Chris. So he flew in to San Jose. So I said to Mike, like I said to everybody, as I say to everybody else, I said, okay, Mike, 3 years ago, before this arthritis showed up, what was going on in your life? He goes, oh man, he goes, you know, I don't, nothing. He goes, all I could think of is, you know, the stress of being on tour. He goes, you know what I think it is? I think it's the way I hold my guitar on stage. And that's what we do. We blame something, like we blame our pillow, we blame our mattress, right? But then he paused and he thought about it. And he said, you know what, Chris? 2 weeks before this showed up, my horse died. So he did what everybody else does, right? Because you still have to move forward, right? He took care of the business he had to, went back on tour, right? And his body said one day, listen to me. At first it started off because we call that channel pathology. It started off as a blockage in the channel itself. But because it actually went on for so long, which creates a deficiency of chi and blood flow and nerve flow or communication through that area, it eventually shows up as a physical arthritis. And you can see the arthritis on the YouTube testimonial that he did for the TV show. I think it was Celebrity Sweat. He said that Chris Shelton got rid of his arthritis in 30 minutes. And no, what I did was I facilitated his body to do what it wanted to do, which that is to heal itself, because our DNA wants to be healthy. So the approach that we come after with the Qigong is how emotions creates disease. And this is what we do with the Special Olympics. You know, we're clinical directors for California for a program called Healthy Athletes, Strong Minds, where we give these practices to the athletes, coaches, and the families, you know, not only to deal with stress of competition, but more importantly, what do you do if somebody's bullying you, right? What do you do with that energy, right? And so yeah, so it's to and explaining it in a way that is tangible for all people to understand. So you normally won't hear me talk about anything esoteric whatsoever. I keep it very grounded, very foundational, and because I enjoy science, I enjoy medicine, I can relate it back. So this is the approach that we take.
Well, I love that last part where you were saying you take the scientific approach as much as possible. So I want to hear, what is Qi? Could you define what Qi is in any way?
That's a great question. Well, you know, our blood is our Qi, right? And so we have a saying that the blood contains the Qi, and the Qi moves the blood around the body. So when I'm talking to people and I say, okay, if you have no idea what Qi is, like we just did this with Eric, Hollywood physique expert, Eric the trainer. We did, he was doing these sleep ninja workouts, and he did a 7-day Qi challenge, right? So every morning at 8 o'clock, so all these celebrities, people from around the world, right, to do Qigong with me at 8 o'clock to 8:30. And so I understand my audience. You know, I got people that never felt Qi before. There's a lot of people that never even heard of Qigong before. They were on this call, of these Zoom calls, right? So I tell them, just think of it in terms of blood or fluids in your body. Your blood is your Qi. And if you think about it, you know, what's interesting is that, like, if you sweat profusely, sweat is an extension of blood. If you sweat profusely, my old fight coach for Kung Lee was, you know, he's training for his last fight, and one time he's coming in here just exhausted. I said, hey, coach, you know, you train like a mad dog, and then you go into the sauna afterwards. The reason why you're so deficient is because the more you're sweating, the weaker you're making your blood and your Qi. So that's why you're so tired. So yeah, so the way that I talk about Qi is it's what emanates through all living things, and you can't ignore it because no, you may not understand it, but just relating to the human body, when you just talk about blood, anybody that's anemic has weak energy. Anybody who has diabetes has weak energy, because diabetes, some people may think that it's an excess disease, but it's actually a deficiency disease of the body. So yeah, so we're using this blood, you know, I tell people, so imagine the blood moving around the body, you know, or you can imagine a white light, but to really understand that you need energy in order for your heart to pump. You need energy to digest and to assimilate, to secrete and excrete. You know, you need energy. And because, you know, with the county contract that we have, we're in charge of the 23,000 employees for employee wellness. And, you know, we go from the mayor's office, give talks on disease prevention. We go to the Center of Disease Prevention and give talks. And that's public health. And we give talks to trauma nurses and doctors on disease. So if my audience is trauma nurses and doctors, I have to tread lightly, and I have to be able to explain what it is that they're feeling. You know, why are they feeling nauseated after doing some of these practices, or they feel like passing out? It's not because they have low blood sugar, right? It's because the energy is moving and it's causing something emotionally to release. So yeah, so for me to explain Qi, at least in the human organism, I describe it as blood. Anything
Mhm.
else around, seen or unseen, for example, the table for which this phone is on, obviously, as we know, has a level of consciousness, right? That's a hard one for people to grasp, right?
Exactly. Where
But
is consciousness? When does it start?
you're right. Yeah. So really just really understanding that the foods that we eat are not food for us is medicine. It's not just fuel. Because some foods and some eating styles, there's all these, you live in San Diego, a lot of beautiful people in San Diego, right? And a lot of beautiful fads of food diets, right? And for some
California
people,
Keto, local company right down the street.
oh yeah,
Exactly.
see,
There you go.
yeah,
Cold raw.
or the cold raw diet. And for some people, their constitution can handle it, but for some people, it also shows up as disease. And so when we're building blood, also, and recognizing, well, what diet works for my constitutional typology that's going to help to build my chi, help to build my blood and my energy, right? Help all these organs in order, you think of it, what is blood? It's nurturing, right? It's nurturing. They call the assimilation process from your stomach and spleen. They call that the Gucci. I love the Gucci because it's the designer chi of the body, and and the more that we build this according to our constitution, also with our emotional state, then we have this vibrant life, right? Then we have this vitality.
There's actually a quote that's coming to my mind, I think, from Master Ni, and he says, just as the fish is unaware that it's swimming in water, most people are unaware of the vast, inexhaustible sea of energy for which we live our lives.
Amen.
Hell yeah.
Vast,
Definitely.
inexhaustible sea of energy. Yeah.
Yeah, there's certainly many layers to that, and one layer of it, just as something that I've always found fascinating, is in the work of mirror neurons, and in particular this Ramachandran, who's got a couple of TED Talks, and in one of them he and I was curious if you guys are familiar with him or this work, but he mentions, it's like if you kind of looked at a group of people and the overall neural activity, it wouldn't be a collection of individuals. It would be kind of this sea of neural signals.
A wave.
A unified field.
Yeah.
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 Because as humans, we transmit and we also receive. So if you can make that distinction of like, okay, this is what I'm feeling, okay, this is what I'm giving off, then it helps to clarify things quite a bit.
Yeah, and we're seeing it right now, with the unrest that's going on because of the injustices that have gone on for over 400 years in this country. And it's the collective unconsciousness, right? And besides taking action and making a stand, it really starts with us too, as far as how we think, right? They have a saying that the thought is louder than thunder in heaven. So, you can't, and this is another thing that Eckhart Tolle said too, anytime you say, okay, we're going to have the war on drugs, the war on hate, the war on racism, all you do is you create more war. You have to change the rhetoric, right? And we have to change it to love. No, we're going to have love and compassion, and yet at the same time too, we're going to take active steps to make creative change. But I'm going to change it first with how I'm speaking and what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to launch a love campaign. We're gonna love all these haters until they realize how great it is to love everyone.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
I think everyone should get a dog, personally.
I just got a beautiful German Shepherd rescue, so I'm very happy.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So, you mentioned the news topic of the moment, which is the civil the unrest, civil disobedience that are currently going on, and I This, the way the news cycles have been this year in particular has been really interesting because we've been through things that my impression is, even if you're somebody who's used to just kind of like sitting back when it comes to politics and news and media and all that stuff, just like kind of sitting on the sidelines and not commenting, like you suddenly find yourself like in the middle of it, regardless. And so the previous topic that we all had to speak to and comment on was the coronavirus pandemic, which I think that's still going on. Has somebody turned that off? Or?
Yeah, it's still going on. I mean, California's opening back up. I know my gym, they're opening doors on Tuesday.
Nice.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Yeah, it's the thing is, the messages that we've been spreading all along in terms of health, wellness, longevity, performance enhancement, the fundamental message of Qigong and fundamental practice, just opening people's eyes and minds to the idea that this is a thing, you can do it, it's amazing, and particularly in combating. Well, there goes the lexicon. But particularly in counteracting stress. As one of the hugest contributing factors for not just unwellness and disease, but also unhappiness, and the basic message is you need to take care of yourself. You need to de-stress. You need to take care of your body, mind, and spirit. And all these things that we had been saying for so long suddenly became, even more important. Like when, in the coronavirus season, like we don't really have to change our fundamental message. It just makes it's even more true what we've been saying all along, kind of, and about stress and counteracting it. And right now the big issue, supposedly on everyone's minds, or at least definitely being put out there in a big way, it's not the individual health, like the health of the individual, but it's kind of the systemic psyche, the systemic psychological health, and the polarization, the tensions, all these things that it's been an issue for a long time, and people have been talking about it for a long time. Now it's really an issue. So what I'm trying to lead up to is, I'm curious about. Last month we were all talking about Qigong for health, wellness, stress reduction. What does that have to do with facing up to and counteracting injustice and putting together a more just and free world for everyone, and de-escalating tensions and creating positive, constructive, co-creative solutions moving forward? What's the role of Qigong in all of that, and what we're facing right now?
Well, yeah. So I believe that like with the Corona thing, right? If you're afraid, if they get you afraid, the media gets you scared, that weakens your immune system, right? So the Qigong is there to really help to strengthen and to work through that fear, and to really understand what is the cause. Like, the crazy thing about that, and I'll get into what the current affairs here. The crazy thing about the Corona thing is that Chinese medicine was based on cold and heat induced diseases, meaning viruses and flus and bacteria. That's what it was based upon. It wasn't based upon focusing on migraines and stuff like that. Those are byproducts. It was focusing on, because thousands and hundreds of thousands of people were dying from plagues, right? And so throughout history,
a whole different situation.
Yeah, throughout history, it's crazy, because throughout history, this has been what's been going on, and this is what kills me is that nobody's talking about how herbology was actually curing this, Hunan, where this whole thing started. Okay, so that's that part. Now getting into the affairs of what's going on right now. Anger is a good emotion. If it causes you to stand up and fight for the underdog to create positive change in the world, that's what that anger is good for. Now, where we utilize the Qigong is because we don't want it to get you sick at the same time. We want you to go out. We want you to get together and make healthy decisions to help to go after to create change in the institutions that are responsible for this type of behavior, and to increase your own consciousness. So we want you to have that anger, we want that passion, because this is what creates the change. But if it's causing you to act out violently yourself, or if it's creating depression in yourself, creating migraines, menstrual problems, neurological problems, now that anger is not of service. Now it's actually injuring you. And this is where the Qigong actually comes into play. You know, I did a video about a month and a half ago on hate, and on YouTube. My friend C.T. Fletcher in Compton sported one of his shirts.
That's why I smiled. I was thinking of his shirt he wore.
Yeah, you have to see the shirt. But anyways, you know, CT, you know, growing up, and there's actually a documentary on Netflix about CT, and how he used bodybuilding to change himself and then to create positive change for the youth, the living in the hood, right? As opposed to allowing the system to beat him down, right? He actually stood up, and he's all about love. That man's amazing. And so this is what I'm saying is that we get together and we don't, first and foremost, we don't ignore what's going on. We don't pretend like we don't see. Even if your contribution is maybe donating to an organization to help create positive change, right? Or even you just meditating on it, you know, is still taking action, because again, this is this thought radiates out, right? So we utilize the Qigong to increase our consciousness and our awareness, right? And also how these events that are awful and unjust is not okay. It's not okay for this kind of stuff to continue to happen. Not allowing, as we go out and be the change, to create the change, allowing it to make us sick.
Yeah, that's a really really great distinction to make. Is that anger, like all emotions, has a purpose, and it also, among emotions, it also has the potential, particularly for being harmful. So in terms of emotional regulation, then Qigong has a big role to play for all of us, it sounds like.
Correct. Yeah, because you know, we all live in society. You know, I like the Taoist teachings from Master Hua Jingni. You know, he started Yosan University in Los Angeles, I believe in the 80s, and they have the Tao Wellness Center in Santa Monica. He's over 100 years old, still jumping around, doing kung fu and stuff, and he looks amazing. You know, and his son's Dr. Mao.
That's why we do Tai Chi and Qigong.
Yeah, right.
That.
Yeah,
that's like the goal.
He's amazing.
So, awesome.
Yeah.
And you know, Dr. Mao and Dr. Tao Jingni, you know, Dr. Mao has been on the Today Show, Dr. Oz, Good Morning America, talking about this stuff also, right? And you know, because you have to understand that disease doesn't just show up by itself, you know, and how we react to situations. And this is why, you know, there's some of my clients, for example, I had to put them on a social media curfew diet because they were getting so angry that they're making themselves sick. Like their nervous system was shutting down on them. Like, hey, let's back off a little bit. Get the news, be educated, educate yourself. Don't be blind. Like I said, you have to be aware, but at the same time too, don't let it get you to the point to where, you know, you feel so helpless and you internalize it and it makes you sick. You know, there are things that we all could do, and I'm really hopeful moving forward that we could definitely get together and really share the love and increase the consciousness and put the people in place that need to be in the proper places to help to enforce this change, to really help to
enforce. There's another one of those words.
Yeah, but to really help to facilitate this change that really has to happen, and because what we saw on the news, and before that there was the other case. I don't even know what state it was, where the young African American kid was shot by the father and the son. Don't
Georgia.
understand that kind of behavior. I just don't. I guess growing up in California, in the Bay Area, and I just don't.
We have a totally different view of the world.
Yeah, and I don't think it's like I was on tour with Def Leppard and Journey, about a year and a half ago, and we went into Birmingham, Alabama. I'd never been there before. They're touring in Alabama.
Yeah, it is the state where the incident you're referring to happened. It was Alabama, which which I mean I actually can relate to, having grown up in Arkansas, which I totally get. I mean it blew my mind to see it happen, but on another level I get it too, and I get that sort of like. I know that exists. It's not, unfamiliar to me.
Wow. Yeah. I was shocked. The tour manager put us up in a really nice hotel in Birmingham. Beautiful, beautiful country out there. I didn't realize it. And it was funny because you could just sense the segregation there still. Like you could just feel it. And I remember a Sunday morning, and I was talking to the chef. And he said, California. He goes, how can you handle living in California? I said, brother, I can handle living anywhere else where I just we're living around just a whole bunch of white people. I mean, I said, where I live is the melting pot. I have so many different ethnic types of friends and foods and experiences. Like we get anything we want. And what's really funny is that I look like a white guy, but my family, my dad's is from David, Panama. So I'm Panamanian. I don't look like it, but you would never know. And this is the thing, right? This is the thing. In fact, what's really interesting.
But racism's stupid, for one thing. Because it means nothing.
Right, it's fake.
It's fake. So it's funny because a few years ago, my dad had a stroke, unfortunately. And so I became his healthcare directive and trustee for his estate. And I found these 2 safe deposit boxes. My dad didn't have any passcodes written anywhere, nothing like that, right? And so I have this thing up to my ear, old school. I'm going listening for it. I'm listening for it. She walks in, she goes, "What the hell are you doing?" I'm like, "Shh, quiet." So, anyways, I figured out the combination on these safe deposit boxes, right? And in there was my dad's baptism from Panama, and then his birth certificate. And actually my real last name is Rodriguez, so she's been calling me C-Rod ever since. So but the point is, and she asked me, she goes, do you think your life would have been different if your last name was Rodriguez? And most definitely yes, it would have been. Even without seeing me, just hearing that name, Chris Rodriguez, automatically it would. And in this country, it brings up stuff for people, and it's that kind of ignorance that we have to change. And so we want to be part of that change.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that we are on the same team. Although it looks like Andrew dropped off. I think he's coming right back. No,
Andrew,
we've still got him.
Boring.
Andrew.
So yeah, what are some like what are some things that would be recommended individually and collectively, what aspects of Qigong or from Taoist wisdom are particularly applicable right now that will help people to evolve, individually do the inner work within themselves, and also help to bridge the gaps and open up the connections, and move us all closer together.
Well, one of the things.
Shake it off.
That's my first one.
Is that what you're gonna say?
Yeah, Taylor Swift song, "Shake It Off," because we're the only animal or mammal on land that does not shake it off when something happens, you know. But two ducks get into a fight. The fight lasts a few seconds. They swim away. First thing they do is they violently flap their wings. Why? Because they're conscious enough to know that they feel that angst inside their body. So I tell people, you know, shake it off. You may have to do it several times in a row. But that's one of my favorite Qigong practices to do, because you may shake it off several times and you may still have the thought in your mind, but at least we want that vibration out of your body, which shows up as disease and also shows up as more angst. I also recommend too doing. I really believe in the 5 elements and the 5 organ cleansing exercises. And as you're working on the liver, for example, the liver move or the liver sound, I want you to focus on what makes you angry. Feel it. Who's involved? What's involved? Is it an institution? Is it a group of people? Is it a single person? What is it that's making you angry? Feel it. I want you to feel it, see it. And as you're doing the movement or the sound, then that's when we release it like a dark cloud going several feet away from the body and deep into the ground. So doing these organ cleansing exercises, you know, like the kidneys too, fear. Because a lot of times anger comes up as a cover up for fear, right? There's a lot of people that are just really afraid. Why? Because we're not educating people, and, you know, people, they get afraid of what they're not certain of, right? Even Qigong, for example, you know, if you're not careful of how you come across with it, you know, it could scare people to think, oh, well, some kind of cult or it's an ism or, you know, something like that, which it's not. Obviously, we all know that, but fear. So, you know, working on those organ cleansing exercises and focusing on the emotions. If you have grief, or a giraffe, but grief, if you have grief going on for you right now because there's a sad time, then I want you to feel that grief, and then do the lung move, the lung sound, right? And really open up your heart. The other thing I do too is I believe in quantum physics. You know, what's funny is both for parents are physicists, and in quantum physics, and they actually have a mathematical equation named after them. I kid you not.
True story.
True story. But anyways, you know, so I
all right.
I talk to myself in the mirror every single morning, and I co-manifest with the universe what it is that I want to happen. And again, you can't say I choose to co-create with God or the universe that I'm not angry anymore, because what God hears is like, or the universe hears like, oh, angry, you become more angry. You say what the opposite is. Like, I come from a place of conscious action and non-reaction. I choose to be a watchful or mindful observer over my mind. So what does that mean? That means that even if you do go down the rabbit hole on something and you can't stop yourself from dwelling on it or thinking on it, then you tell yourself as the observer, I can't stop myself from thinking about this, but I'm going to at least be aware of it. All right. And the more that we become aware of our thoughts, and then we could collectively come together as because the crazy thing is that we're all connected anyways. We're connected with everything in the universe, like everything. And that's, doesn't matter your skin color, doesn't matter what your belief structure is.
Where you were born,
does not
gender,
matter.
Age.
So yeah, so I really just recommend
and every level of your being as well.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. So yeah.
And on that note, it's like focusing
like
on what you want.
Yeah, so yeah, and focusing on what you want, right?
Not what you don't want.
Yeah, so again, going back to chi and energy, right? Our thoughts are forms of energy, right? And you know, we want to create change, and we want to awaken ourselves, so that way we can start to awaken other people, right? Not to get them as followers, you know. Not as followers, you know. I utilize followers on Instagram or YouTube right now, but I don't want followers, you know. And that's what I think I like about the Tai Chi, at least with my Sifu and the Qigong practices, is that the whole idea is that the student surpasses the teacher, right? Not that the teacher suppresses the student. So we let ourselves go to say, hey, how can we How can we educate and enlighten people, but not and allow them to prosper, to expand, right? So
guys, I want to make sure that
that's very important. I
want to make sure that in the time we have, people who are watching know what's the best way to connect with you, to learn from you, to follow your work. So what would that be?
Well, the easiest way is to go to sheltonqigong.com.
All right, excellent.
And then we have a contact page on there. You can sign up for our weekly newsletters. All the social media is on there. We just launched this week the qiclub.com. So we're really excited about that. That one is a membership website, and we're offering 4 weekly classes. I'm doing 2 classes. Chris is doing 2 classes. We have some exclusive content only for the members. So that's available too. And there's a founding membership special going on right now until Friday. So that's a really great way to interact, to be in our living room, for us to be in your living room, and just really experience the flow.
Yeah, we did all these classes through this whole COVID thing, everything for free. Everything was free. And then what's really cool is up here, we were sponsored by San Francisco Bay Wildlife Society, Saved by Nature, Open Space Authority. So they would contract us to teach these classes out in public or in the hills via virtual Zoom and stuff like that for the public to take for free. So this membership thing, this Founding Fathers membership for the Qi Club, it's $19 a month, and it breaks down to $1 a class, which is pretty profound. We also have QigongTeacherTraining.com. So for anybody that wants to learn Qigong, we have a level 1 and a level 2. In fact, the next level 1 starts June 22nd. It's interactive, it's online, but there's a forum. At the end of the 13 weeks is level 1. We get together for a weekend workshop, either in Los Angeles or here in San Jose. And if you can't make it, because we do get people from around the world, then they could Zoom in and we put them on the big screen. It's like they're really in the room with us. So yeah.
Yeah, and we're actually really excited because for the first time, we'll be having like a live in-person, first time in several months, we'll be having a live interactive workshop this weekend.
Yeah, we actually have a group of level 1 practitioners
who are finishing and we're gonna get together in person. We will be wearing masks, but we will still be in the same room together.
So yeah, and once again, Shelton Qigong for the YouTube, because once a week we put out content for free. We put out a lot of free content. You see, on some health-related topic, some disease. I'm writing my 2nd book right now. My 2nd book should be at least finished being written by September. It's on all the different types of back problems, from cervical, thoracic to lumbar. And so we're looking at it from an emotional, Chinese medicine, Western medicine. So I'm really excited for that book. We also, reason for LA too is that we're working on a TV show on what it is that I do in clinic, because the results are so high, or so the success rate is so very high. And so the purpose of that TV show is, first and foremost, is to
give people hope.
Give people hope that they don't have to live with disease and pain, that they could transform it. That's what it's about. We're all about just uplifting people, empowering people, give people the power. Give people the power.
Power to the people.
Yes. It's so. I think that's just a really powerful message to wrap up on. Is hope, and hope goes with empowerment. Without hope, there can be no empowerment. So whatever challenges we're facing, individually and or collectively. Just knowing, keeping in sight that there is hope is huge. So I'll say to be continued, because I know there's a lot more that we could explore in this whole area, and it's been so much fun talking with you guys. But
thank you.
also want to say that I'm really grateful that we're on the same team. I'm grateful that you guys are out there doing the work that you're doing, and that you're helping with this job of uplifting and inspiring us all, and giving us the tools, to empowering us with the tools to take back our health and wellness, live free of pain, and unlock the potential in these ancient wisdoms and teachings and practices that are our birthright as a species. So thanks for being here and sharing yourself, guys. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. Such a blessing to see you guys. And again, that we have other people out there that have the same mindset, you know, because we hold the space, right? We hold the space, and then we allow for other people to then feel that. And then, you know, this is how we create change. Maybe it's little by little, but this is how we create change. So, you know, hopefully we could get together in person sometime and hang out.
Yeah.
And have have some cheesy stories. Cheesy, get it cheesy.
And I was gonna say I thought we were gonna drink chai tea, but if you want to have a tea party, that's fine too.
We can do both.
Yeah.
It sounds great, and I know that we'll be in touch also about World Tai Chi Day stuff, because we're cooking up some awesome stuff behind the scenes with that, but there's more great things on the way. So I look forward to staying in touch, staying connected with both of you, and keep up the good work. And thank you for being here, and also thank you everyone for watching. If you're joining us live or catching the replay, thank you for being here as well. And that's all I've got. Thank you for being here as well, Andrew.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew.
Yeah.
Thank you both.
Yeah, thank you both.
Andrew, Dane.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for all the work you do. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. That's awesome. Yeah. So we have a saying that when we're doing these cheese shows, you know, every morning, that it all comes back to love. And how do we spell it? It's like this: LOVE.
Oh, there you go.
She left me hanging there. Did you see that?
No, I was trying to get my E in the camera.
She left me hanging. Left the love hanging.
Just look down already.
Oh, love, there it is.
There you go.
All right. Good night, everybody.
You guys be blessed. Take care. Take care.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Live long and prosper.